When my parents left Grandma at a nursing home and said she's too much work for us now, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just watched. 6 months later, those same people were begging her for help because the woman they called a burden now owned the entire place. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Vera, I'm 29 years old, and I grew up in a family that looked perfect from the outside: big house, fancy cars, vacations that filled our photo albums. But behind the smiling pictures, everything was cold. My parents were the kind of people who cared more about reputation than relationships, more about looking like a good family than being one. And the only warmth in our house came from Grandma Evelyn. Grandma wasn't rich, but she was wise. She used to say money can buy you everything except peace of mind. She taught me to cook, to listen, to see people for who they really are, not for what they have. She was the one who showed up at every school play, every heartbreak, every moment I thought I was alone. So when her health started declining, when she began forgetting small things or needing help getting up, I thought the family would rally around her. I was wrong. The conversation started quietly, almost like whispers. I'd hear my father say things like, "Mom's getting forgetful, maybe she needs professional care." My mother would sigh and reply, "Vera can't handle her, and we have our own lives. Maybe it's time." Every time I walked into the room, they'd stop talking, pretending everything was fine. But one evening, I heard the words that made my stomach twist. "She's had her life," my father said flatly. "We can't keep rearranging ours for her." I stood frozen in the hallway. My grandmother, the woman who raised him, who helped pay for his college by cleaning other people's houses, was suddenly a burden. A week later, they told her. My mom softened her voice, as if sugarcoating cruelty would make it sweet. "Mom, we think it's best if you stay somewhere you can get proper care. You'll have company there, people your age." Grandma just smiled, that same calm, dignified smile she always had. "If that's what's best for everyone," she said softly, "then I'll go." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them they were heartless. But Grandma gave me a look, one that said, "Don't fight this." So I didn't. I helped her pack, folded her sweaters, labeled her photo albums, watched her kiss her favorite plant goodbye like it was an old friend. The day they drove her to the nursing home, it felt like a funeral. My parents barely said goodbye. My uncle didn't even show up. But Grandma, bless her heart, held my hand the entire drive. "Don't be sad, darling," she whispered. "Sometimes life moves you exactly where you need to be." The nursing home was old but clean, a quiet place on the outskirts of town. The staff seemed kind and Grandma charmed them immediately. She had that way about her, she could make anyone feel seen. After she settled in, I made it a point to visit every weekend. I'd bring her books, flowers, or her favorite caramel candies. We'd sit in the courtyard, talking for hours. She never complained, not once. But I could see the sadness behind her eyes when my parents never visited. They stopped calling altogether. My dad would shrug and say, "She's taken care of." My mom would add, "At least she's comfortable." And life went on for them: vacations, dinners, shopping trips. Their social media was full of smiling pictures, as if they hadn't just abandoned the person who gave them everything. Meanwhile, Grandma was quietly becoming the heart of the nursing home. She'd started helping the staff not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She organized game nights, helped the nurses balance the books, and even advised the manager, Mr. Jacobs, who often looked overwhelmed. One afternoon, I walked in and found her at a table surrounded by files and spreadsheets. She was wearing her reading glasses, pencil tucked behind her ear, completely focused. "Grandma," I laughed. "What are you doing? Are you working here now?" She looked up, her eyes twinkling. "Just helping Mr. Jacobs straighten out the accounts. They've been losing track of payments, and," well, she chuckled softly, "numbers have always been my friends." I smiled, but part of me ached. My parents had tossed her aside like she was useless, yet here she was proving, even in her old age, that she still had more wisdom and value than any of them. As weeks passed, I noticed a change. The staff seemed happier, more organized. The residents smiled more. The meals improved. Even the garden looked livelier. Grandma wasn't just living there, she was transforming the place. But my parents didn't care. Every time I brought up visiting her, my father would roll his eyes. "She's fine, Vera. Stop being dramatic." My mother would change the subject. They had no idea what Grandma was doing, and neither did I, not yet. Because one day, when I arrived early, I overheard Mr. Jacobs talking to another staff member. "If it weren't for Mrs. Harper," he said, "this place would have gone under. Her advice turned everything around." I stepped back, stunned. My grandma had saved the nursing home. Later that day, as I was leaving, I asked her if it was true. She just smiled and patted my hand. Let's just say, helping people stay in business isn't as hard as helping them stay kind. Her words stayed with me. Because in that moment, I realized maybe grandma wasn't just surviving. Maybe she was planning something bigger. Something no one saw coming. It had been 6 months since grandma moved into the nursing home, and something about her seemed different. Not weak or stronger. There was a light in her eyes again, the kind that made you feel like she was always 5 steps ahead of everyone else. Every weekend I visited, she'd have something new to show me: a renovated library corner, a new meal plan, a freshly painted hallway. She'd say things like, "You'd be amazed how much a fresh coat of paint can change a person's mood, darling." But what really surprised me was how everyone in the nursing home treated her. The nurses called her Miss Evelyn, the boss lady. Even Mr. Jacobs, the manager, seemed to look to her for guidance. When she walked into a room, people smiled, residents waved, staff whispered about her ideas and organization skills. It was strange my parents had abandoned her, thinking she'd fade away quietly, but here she was, more alive than ever. Meanwhile, my parents were doing what they always did, flaunting their perfect lives online. Dad's business had been booming, or so he said. My mom was busy showing off luxury handbags and brunches with her friends. But I noticed cracks forming. Little things, like Dad snapping at me when I asked about his company, or Mom ignoring calls from the bank. Then one night, Grandma called me out of the blue. Her voice was warm, calm but purposeful. "Vera, dear," she said, "I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to say yes before you even know what it is." I laughed. "That sounds dangerous, Grandma." She chuckled softly. "Not dangerous. Just important. I need you to drive me somewhere tomorrow. No questions, just trust me." Of course, I said yes. The next morning, I picked her up and she guided me to a small office downtown, elegant but modest. Inside was a woman in her 60s, wearing a tailored suit and a kind smile. "Vera," Grandma said, "this is Mrs. Coleman, the owner of the nursing home." Mrs. Coleman shook my hand. "Your grandmother is the reason my business still exists." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Grandma smiled, that little secret smile she always had. Mrs. Coleman explained everything: how the nursing home was on the verge of shutting down because of mismanagement, how Grandma helped them reorganize finances, secure new funding, and rebuild their reputation. "She's been my unofficial advisor," Mrs. Coleman said proudly. "I've never met anyone with such sharp instincts or a kinder heart." I was speechless. Grandma, my sweet, humble grandma, had saved an entire company? Then came the shocker. Mrs. Coleman wanted to retire. And she wanted to hand the nursing home over, not sell it, to someone who cared about it the way she did. Someone who saw it as more than a business. That someone was Grandma. At first, Grandma refused. She said, "I'm old, dear. I don't need ownership. I'm happy just helping." But Mrs. Coleman insisted, offering her a generous share and a promise: "It's not just a gift, it's a thank you. You gave this place its soul back." After a long pause, Grandma looked at me. "Well," she said with a smile, "maybe it's time I stop underestimating myself." I didn't realize it then, but that was the start of everything. Over the next few weeks, Grandma became officially part owner of the nursing home. I helped her set up a small office there, her desk always neat, her books lined perfectly, a photo of Grandpa smiling down from the shelf. She still treated everyone the same. She didn't brag or change. But you could feel the shift, the quiet power in her steps, the respect in the staff's tone, the peace in her eyes. Then, one afternoon while visiting her, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was tight, nervous. "Vera, have you spoken to Grandma recently?" "Of course," I said. "Why?" There was a pause. "Your father's company, it's having some issues. We might need a little financial help. I thought maybe your grandmother could." I froze. "You want Grandma to bail you out? After you dumped her in a nursing home?" "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "She's still family. And she'd want to help." I wanted to laugh at the irony, but instead, I said I'll ask her, and hung up. That evening, I told Grandma about the call. She didn't even flinch. "Well," she said gently, "I do believe in helping family, but only when they remember what family means." A few days later, my parents called me again, this time, panicked. Their company had lost a major investor. Uncle Dennis, who had been handling finances, had been caught gambling with company funds. They were drowning in debt, desperate, and on the verge of losing everything. Still, they didn't visit Grandma. They didn't apologize. They just wanted her money. I told Grandma everything. She smiled softly and said, I think they're about to learn that life always balances its books. The next week, I dropped by the nursing home after work. I found Grandma sitting in her office, signing some documents. Are you working late again? I teased. She laughed. You could say that. When she was done, she handed me one of the papers. It was a deed transfer. Mrs. Coleman had finalized her retirement, making Grandma the majority owner of the entire nursing home chain. I stared at her. Grandma, you own this place now. She nodded. Technically, I own 5 of them. Isn't that something? I hugged her, tears in my eyes. She had turned her pain into purpose. She patted my hand. Remember this, Vera, they may have left me here, but they didn't realize they left me where I could grow. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. My parents thought they'd gotten rid of her, but what they really did was give her the space to build an empire. And soon, karma would make sure they'd see exactly what that meant. When karma finally came knocking, it didn't arrive with a thunderclap. It showed up quietly, in the form of an invitation. It was a crisp Thursday morning when I got the call from Grandma. Her tone was calm, but I could hear a hint of amusement in her voice. Vera, sweetheart, she said, I'm hosting a luncheon next week at the nursing home. A few new partners, investors, and community members will be there. Bring your parents, would you? I almost dropped my phone. You want them there? She chuckled. Oh yes. I think it's time they see where they left me. I didn't ask questions. I knew Grandma never did anything without a purpose. So I called Mom and Dad. At first, they tried to act disinterested. Mom said, why would we go to a nursing home luncheon, and Dad muttered something about being too busy trying to save what was left of his company. But when I mentioned that local news reporters and investors would be attending, they changed their tune instantly. Fine, Mom sighed. We'll come. It'll be good to show we support her, I guess. The day of the event, I watched their car pull into the parking lot, the same luxury SUV they refused to sell, even as they struggled to pay their mortgage. They stepped out, dressed like they were attending a gala instead of a nursing home gathering. Dad adjusted his tie, glancing around at the freshly painted walls, manicured gardens, and elegant signage that now read, Evelyn Care Homes, where dignity lives. Mom blinked. Wait. Evelyn? As in Mom Evelyn. I smiled. Yes. She renamed it. Her jaw went slack. You're joking. Nope, I said. She owns it now. They exchanged a stunned look, clearly realizing this was not the humble little home they had abandoned her to. Inside, the place looked stunning. Soft lighting, beautiful decor, laughter filling the halls. There were businessmen shaking hands, cameras flashing, staff members bustling with excitement. Then Grandma appeared, walking gracefully in a navy blue dress and pearl earrings. Her hair was perfectly styled, her smile radiant. She looked every inch the woman in charge. Mom, Dad stammered, you look incredible. She kissed him on the cheek politely. Thank you, dear. I'm glad you could make it. As we took our seats, a few local officials began to speak about Grandma's contributions, how she had transformed the nursing home into a chain, created jobs, and restored dignity to elder care. Each word made my parents shrink a little more in their seats. Then, the moment came. The host announced, please welcome the woman who made all this possible, the owner and founder, Mrs. Evelyn Brooks. The applause was thunderous. Grandma stepped up to the podium, her voice clear and steady. Thank you all for being here, she began. When I first arrived at this home, I didn't expect to stay long. My family thought I belonged here, out of sight, out of mind. But sometimes, life places you exactly where you need to be. The audience was silent, hanging on her every word. This place gave me a second chance to use my mind, my experience, and my heart. And I realized something important: we are never truly abandoned when we still have purpose. Her gaze flicked briefly toward my parents. My father shifted uncomfortably. My mother pretended to smile. After the speech, there was a champagne toast. My parents tried to blend in, complimenting guests and pretending they had supported her all along. But the whispers around them told another story. Everyone knew they had left her here like an inconvenience. Everyone knew who she was and who they were. Then came the twist I never saw coming. As the luncheon ended, Grandma announced, I have one more surprise. She gestured toward a projector screen behind her. On it appeared photos of the nursing home's new branch, a massive facility being built just outside the city. This will be our flagship, she said proudly. And I'm thrilled to share that our first corporate partnership will be with a local construction firm. My dad perked up immediately, whispering to Mom, this could save us. But then Grandma continued, unfortunately, I had to make a few changes. The company we originally considered had integrity issues. She looked right at Dad. So we chose a different firm. Dad's smile froze. Mom went pale. A soft murmur rippled through the room. Everyone knew exactly what she meant. After the presentation, as guests mingled, I stepped outside for air. Moments later, my father followed, anger simmering beneath his voice. Did she have to humiliate me like that? He snapped. I turned to him. She didn't humiliate you. She told the truth. She could have helped us, he barked. We're family. I stared at him, remembering every time he'd said Grandma was a burden, every time he ignored her calls, every time he laughed when she asked to see us. Family, I said quietly. You stopped being family the day you left her here. He didn't respond. He just stormed off toward the car. Inside, Grandma was still surrounded by guests, glowing, confident, free. When she saw me, she waved me over. Well, she said softly, how do you think it went? I laughed. You destroyed them without even raising your voice. She smiled, a mix of pride and peace. I didn't destroy anyone, dear. I just reminded them who I've always been. As the sun set outside, I watched her walking through the garden with a few residents. They adored her not because of her wealth, but because she gave them hope. It hit me then, Grandma didn't just get revenge. She built something beautiful from the pieces they tried to break her with. And the best part? My parents couldn't escape it. Every time they drove past a billboard for Evelyn Care Homes, they'd remember the woman they cast aside now stood taller than ever. Sometimes karma doesn't come with shouting or anger. Sometimes it wears pearls, walks with grace, and signs ownership papers with a steady hand. And as for Grandma, she never gloated. She never rubbed it in. She just smiled and said they left me here to disappear, but instead, I found myself again. That was the day I realized revenge isn't about getting even, it's about rising so high that the people who wronged you have no choice but to look up.